Hello and welcome. Tonight, tensions flare at the National Assembly as lawmakers disrupt the 2025 budget defense session for the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, warns the military against the killing of innocent citizens. Criminals vandalize the 132 kV transmission line, disrupt power supply to Maitama, Wuse, Jabi, Life Camp, Asokoro, Utako, and Mabushi. And TikTok faces ban in US by Sunday after Supreme Court rejects appeal.
On business, federal government, state, and local governments share over 1.4 trillion naira as revenue for December.
On Sports News tonight, Erling Haaland signs a blockbuster new deal at Manchester City to keep the prolific forward at the Etihad until 2034.
From the nation's capital, Vice President Kashim Shettima arrives in Borno State on a condolence visit to the families of soldiers who lost their lives during a terrorist attack in Damboa.
We begin from the National Assembly, where the Minister of Works, Mr. Dave Umahi, has voiced his frustration over the current budgetary allocation for road infrastructure, emphasizing that improving the sector cannot be solely reliant on budgetary provisions. Speaking during his budget defense session, the minister highlighted the limitations of the current funding framework and called for alternative financing methods, including loans, to meet the nation's infrastructure needs. Meanwhile, there were disagreements amongst lawmakers over lack of budget documents during the budget presentation by the Minister of Petroleum Oil, Mr. Heineken Lokobiri, who appeared alongside the Minister of State for Petroleum Gas, Mr. Ekperekpe Ekpo. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
It's the last day for Budget's defense presentation for the week, and the two ministers of state for petroleum are expected to appear before the federal lawmakers.
You have copies of the presentation you want to make?
The ministers had barely settled to make their presentations when there is an outburst from the lawmakers over the absence of advanced copies of budget documents. Enraged, one lawmaker directly confronts the Minister of State for Petroleum Oil.
Distinguished Senator, I want to tell you on record that as Chairman House Committee on Upstream, I am seeing you only once in a year. And that's not how to collaborate and work together. You are making our works quite difficult. And I want to advise that if you are not ready for this exercise, fine, we reschedule this meeting. It doesn't matter. If you like, you come back on Monday. If you like, don't come back on Monday. We will do our job with or without you in attendance.
I don't have any formal communication that this session is taking place today. I only got to know about it late last night. So please, I apologize. I don't want, you know why?
Honorable Minister.
Because
Following his apology, the ministers proceed with the presentations.
Budget presentation.
Challenges accompanied by the advent of compressed natural gas is highlighted as lawmakers frown at the avoidable explosions in the country.
Those ones that you have explosion has been done by illegal outfit, which we are working on making sure that they don't operate. We know we are beginning something that is new to our country, Nigeria, to cut down the cost. But we should expect some of these accidents at the very minimal level.
as Africans, we have agreed that, look, first of all, let us explore the resources we have, both oil and gas, to first of all get energy security before we talk about transition. After all, we are victims. We are not culprits. We still need to work together to see how we can maximize production. And that's why our target this is to ensure that we get minimum of 2.5 million barrels to 3 million barrels. But that can be done without other investment.
In another session, the Minister of Works appeared before the Senate Committee on Works. Speaking on the 2024 performance, funding is apparently a profound challenge for the minister.
We have to support the president to look for money to loan if we really want to improve on this. And I feel frustrated. And so we have to agree whether we need to improve on road infrastructure, and whatever thing you give to us, let us tie it to specific projects and then watch us. In 9 months, we will exhaust whatever allocation you will give to us. We know your passion. Continue working with the president to raise funds so that our roads can be motorable.
The minister reiterates his stance that Nigeria needs an estimated 18.6 trillion naira over the next 4 years to fix the nation's road sector. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In the aftermath of his budget defense session at the National Assembly, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Arik Air, has described the disruption that occurred during the presentation of the 2025 budget to the Joint Committees on Police Affairs and Police Institutions as unnecessary and avoidable, clarifying that the document he presented was shared with all committee members beforehand. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Air explained that 2 versions of the budget documents were provided to the committee members, and they include a comprehensive copy and an abridged version. He explains that while both documents contain same figures and facts, the abridged version used simplified language which the committee members unanimously agreed with the motion that the IGP should present since they all had access to both documents. The police boss reiterates that the Nigeria Police did not submit 2 different 2025 budgetary proposal documents to the Joint Committees at the National Assembly, contrary to reports circulating in the news and media outlets.
I want to make this clarification that the IG did not present a document that is different to what was circulated to members. 2 documents were circulated. I was presenting the summary. Probably those senators don't have the copies that I was presenting, but the copies are available for them. They have just asked to be served the copy, and there will not have been any drama. So that's why I call it an unnecessary drama. It was quite unnecessary. There is nothing new in the challenges presented. For a very long time, the Nigerian police has been facing 3 critical challenges. One is inadequate appropriation, which limits modernization and service delivery. 2 is the restrictive envelope budget system, which fails to account for the expansive, innovative demands of the police. What is the delay in fund releases and sometimes incomplete releases of funds appropriated to the police.
In energy news now, the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, has voiced his frustration over the constant attack on power infrastructure across the country by vandals. Mr. Adelabu, who is speaking in Lagos at the commissioning of a 110 MVA transformer at the 132-33 kV transmission substation in Isolo, says the project is the first in the lineup of interventions by the CBN under the service level agreement with the Transmission Company of Nigeria. The minister also tasked the distribution companies on more investment into the downstream power sector. Our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips, reports.
This is the solar transmission substation. It has just been kitted with a 110 MVA transformer and therefore becomes the first in the series of lined-up interventions by the Central Bank of Nigeria's service level agreement with the Transmission Company of Nigeria. The Minister of Power, who is joined by other power sector officers at this event, speaks to the level of investment required, the modest successes recorded, and the challenges of vandalism.
It can be very, very discouraging, it can be very, very depressing. When you completed transmission installations and just few days or few weeks after, they are brought down by vandals. They are demolished and destroyed. This is an act of sabotage. And it shows that we don't love ourselves. This does not happen in any other parts of the world. A lot of places are in darkness today, not for wanting of electrical installations, but by self-inflicted destruction of these installations.
While still speaking on the devastating effect of vandal activities, news filtered in that vandals have just struck in Abuja, throwing a large area of the FCT into darkness.
This is the activity of vandals, this Babambola or what have you. This one should be eradicated. They are causing a lot of havoc. This thing is more or less, they are trying to bring the government down. You can imagine 8 feeders are out. The whole of Central area will be out. And this thing is affecting 6 conductors, 6 cables, one by 500 mm SLP cable. It's not something we manufacture in Nigeria. And during this termination, we must bring in experts. Though we have our people, but despite that, we need some people to guide. We don't have that technology. Now the whole of this Central area will be out. It's pathetic. They have been vandalizing our line outside. That is the overhead. We are still battling with that, and now they are coming to this. Honestly, if you ask of my opinion, this is politically motivated. And honestly, something needs to be done. Babambola should be banned. Otherwise, they are going to do worse.
Back at the event, we asked the minister the status report on the Siemens deal with Nigerian government.
We are just about starting the pilot project when this government came in. And within a year and a half, we have almost completed the pilot project of the Siemens project. Pilot phase of the Siemens project, where we have imported, we have installed, we have commissioned 10 power transformers, 10 mobile substations. And this is what actually convinced Mr. President and the Federal Executive Council in December last year for them to give us the go-ahead and approval to proceed into the phase 1 of this project.
Meanwhile, parts of the Kedja Distribution Company and their co-distribution company commercial undertaking can now go ahead and relish the outcomes of this new transformer targeting additional 88 megawatts. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
We now head to the courts, and the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has reserved till a later date its ruling on a move by General Hydrocarbons Limited, GHL, seeking to vacate the order freezing its assets, accounts and related entities. Through its counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Victor Ogude, the First Bank of Nigeria Limited opposed the move and asked Justice Deinde Dikbeolu to uphold his order freezing the assets, pending the outcome of a substantive suit aimed at recovering a loan of $225.8 million extended to the oil company. Now, the bank made the application today while responding to an application filed by GHL seeking to lift the order, which it contended was obtained through the concealment of important facts. While arguing for the lifting of the order, GHL's counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Abiodun Layano, claimed that First Bank's suit represents an abuse of court process. He also claimed that the bank failed to disclose an earlier order granted by Justice Ambrose Lewis Alagua, which restrained the bank from taking further action to recover the loan until the parties subjected themselves to arbitration. Mr. Layano then asked the court to dismiss the Mareva injunction, arguing that the court was misled into granting it and same has caused significant financial harm to General Hydrocarbons Limited, GHL. In response, Mr. Ogude submitted that First Bank did not deceive the court to obtain the order. He emphasized that the bank provided all relevant facts in its affidavit supporting the suit. He also pointed out that the parties involved in Justice Lewis Alagua's case and those before Justice Dikbeolu are different, and that nothing in the earlier order prevents First Bank from pursuing the current matter under different agreements. Mr. Ogude also asked the court to strike out or dismiss GHL's suit as incompetent and then set a date for the hearing of the substantive suit. After considering the arguments presented, the judge reserved the ruling for a later date, which will then be communicated to both parties. In part 2, after the break, APC supporters chased private security agents from their do-elect petition tribunal, alleging hindrance to the party's chairman's access to the tribunal premises. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Tensions flare at the National Assembly as lawmakers disrupt the 2025 budget defense session for the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, warns the military against the killing of innocent citizens. Criminals vandalize the 132 kV transmission line, disrupt power supply to Maitama, Wuse, Jabi, Life Camp, Asokoro, Utako, and Mabushi. And TikTok faces ban in US by Sunday after Supreme Court rejects appeal. We're staying with the courts now. Lawyers representing the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, have urged the chief judge of the Federal High Court to reassign Mr. Kanu's case to a new judge. This call comes 2 months after Justice Binta Nyako recused herself from the matter following Mr. Kanu's oral application on the last adjourned date.
We raise objections to this trial too, based on the conditions of his detention, which were very stringent and highly prejudicial to his right to fair trial. This application was summarily denied and an accelerated trial was ordered in its place. We raised a second objection based on certain constitutional infirmities and statutory issues we noticed in the charges facing against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. These two was summarily denied. Having considered those factors which we enunciated, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu felt that the only fair way out of this logjam is to seek that his case be handled by another judge. Hence, the recusal, the famous recusal that is still roiling the system. As lawyers, our duty is to ensure that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case is conducted or handled in accordance with all the laws pertinent to it.
Talking security, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has tasked men and officers of the Nigerian Armed Forces to ensure that innocent citizens are protected. The Defense Chief gave the charge during an official working visit to the Nigeria Defense Academy in Kaduna State, where he commissioned several projects to improve the welfare and training of cadets.
On arrival at the Nigerian Defense Academy, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, inspects a quarter guard mounted in his honor. He's at the nation's premier military training institution to commission some projects and flag off the construction of new ones. While highlighting some of the projects to be commissioned, which include an ICT center, the Commandant of the Nigerian Defense Academy, Major General John Ochai, notes the effective use of ICT in modern warfare and counter-terrorism operations.
There are also a lot of ongoing projects that will enhance our training here at the Nigerian Defense Academy. And this includes the indoor shooting range, which will soon come on stream. That particular facility is being constructed by the Nigerian Army engineers with Norinco of China as our technical partners.
The Chief of Defense Staff also interacted with cadets and staff of the Academy. He reminds them of the task before them, urging them to brace up for the challenge.
Our duty is to protect Nigerians, to protect our sovereignty, or outside. It is not to harm innocent people. That we must understand. As the cadets, as we grow into the system, understand this clearly. Our duty is to protect and defend our country.
Accompanied by the commander of the Academy, senior military officers and their wives, the Chief of Defense Staff then commissioned some of the projects, which includes the NDA Emergency and Trauma Center, the Basic Military Training Complex, among others. The projects are expected to enhance the Academy's capacity to fulfill its mandate of producing military officers of the highest caliber who can effectively utilize their training to address Nigeria's security challenges. The cadets are reminded of the huge resources that have been invested in their training and the need of them to live up to expectations as they move to the battlefield, especially in the era of artificial intelligence.
Heading down to the southwest part of the country, where the Ogun State government says it is considering signing the death warrants of condemned criminals sentenced by competent courts to serve as a deterrent to those who may want to commit heinous crimes in the state. The State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Oluwashina Ogungbade, made the disclosure today after a scheduled visit to inmates and facilities at the Barra Correctional Center in the state capital. The Attorney General, who was conducted around by officers of the center, expressed concern over the increase in criminal activities like ritual killings, kidnapping, cultism, and other heinous crimes in recent times in the state. According to Mr. Ogungbade, the state government is ready to take the bull by the horn by implementing the law through the signing of the death warrants. In Edo State, it was plenty of drama on the sidelines of the ongoing election petition tribunal as some All Progressives Congress supporters chased out private security agents from the court premises following an altercation over the access denial inside the courtroom. The group led by Kelly Okungbawa, chairman of the Edo State Assets Recovery Committee, explained that the party state chairman, Jared Tenabe, and other executives had been denied access by security agents at the court entrance where unauthorized persons were allowed to stay. Mr. Okungbawa insisted that the security agents belonged to the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Aswe Ighodalo, and should not have been allowed to be around the courtroom at all. Still in Edo State and talking party politics, where the People's Democratic Party has condemned the takeover of its party secretariat along Airport Road in Benin City by the All Progressives Congress on Thursday, January the 16th. Speaking at a press conference, the chairman of the Edo PDP Caretaker Committee, Anthony Azegbemi, accused the APC of taking laws into their hands by forcefully reclaiming the property which does not belong to the state government. Mr. Azegbemi maintained that the issue of tenancy had been resolved back in 2020 with an appeal court ruling in favor of the PDP, adding that the APC should have explored the option of dialogue to settle the dispute rather than resorting to self-help. More politics, but back at the court, and the Court of Appeal Abuja has reiterated that Julius Abure remains the national chairman of the Labour Party, LP. Now, a three-member panel of the Appellate Court, in a judgment delivered by Justice Hamabarka, held that its judgment of November the 13th, 2024, which recognizes Mr. Abure as national chairman, subsists and has not been set aside by any court. Justice Baraka made the declaration while delivering judgment in two separate appeals filed by Senator Esther Nnamdi Usman and the Caretaker Committee and the Electoral Umpire INEC. Now, the Appellate Court in the two separate appeals held that it did not delve into the issue of the leadership of the Labour Party because such issues are not justiciable. According to the Appellate Court, anything that is done outside jurisdiction amounts to a nullity. Hence, the judgment of the Federal High Court delivered on October the 8th of 2024 by Justice Emeka Nwite is of no effect because it was delivered without jurisdiction. Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Gloria Umezoke is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Over to you, Gloria.
Many thanks, Ayo. We turn our attention now to the Vice President Kashim Shettima, who has arrived in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, on a condolence visit to the families of soldiers who lost their lives during a terrorist attack in Damboa. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant on Media and Communications, Mr. Stanley Nkwocha, says the Vice President is in the state to extend the condolences of President Bola Tinubu and the federal government to the families of the fallen soldiers and to honor their ultimate sacrifice. The soldiers who died during the attack in Damboa paid the ultimate sacrifice while successfully repelling an onslaught that resulted in the neutralization of 34 terrorists at a forward operating base in Sabongeri. In the wake of the tragic event, President Tinubu had called for a thorough investigation to uncover the circumstances that led to the unfortunate incident and ensure it serves as a valuable lesson to prevent similar occurrences. The Nasarawa State Police Command has ordered the remand of Mr. Timileyin Ajayi, who has been accused of murdering his purported girlfriend. The court ordered the remand of Mr. Ajayi, who was caught with the severed head of a National Youth Service Corps member, Ms. Salome Adaidu. The remand was contained in a short statement posted on an X page of the Nasarawa State Police Command on Friday. According to the statement, the suspect was arraigned pending his formal arraignment. Mr. Ajayi is accused of dismembering his purported girlfriend, Ms. Salome Adaidu, when she visited him at his house in the Papalana Axis at New Karishi in Karu, local government area of Nasarawa State. Prior to her gruesome murder, the 24-year-old victim, who was a member of the National Youth Service Corps, serving at AMCON Insurance in Abuja, the nation's capital. Still ahead on the news at 10, federal government, states and local governments share over 1.4 trillion naira as revenue for December. Let's join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. The ongoing battle between the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, and the founder of Arik Air Limited, Mr. Johnson Arumemi Ikide, continues to linger as more details unfold. At a media parley held in Lagos, AMCON sought to make clarifications about the status of the debt profile of Arik, as well as provide details of what led the federal government to take over the airline in 2017.
The environment you're seeing may be calm, but there's nothing calm about the relationship between the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, and the founder of Arik Air Limited, Mr. Johnson Arumemi Ikide. This conflict can be traced back to 2017 when the federal government, through AMCON, took over operations at Arik due to the company's high debt profile, as is explained at this press conference by the head of AMCON's Corporate Communications Department, Jude Nwanzo.
The federal government at the time, if you recall, APs were just coming into the industry. We're not strong. There was no United Nigeria, there was no Green Africa. So many of these airlines that we see today, they were not there. So it was only proper then for the federal government to suggest that AMCON should please, because of the over 1,500 jobs that would have been lost if AMCON was liquidated, if Arik was liquidated, and that we should manage it, the reserve manager should manage it. So it was a mandate of the federal government of Nigeria. Sir Johnson hired the auditors to do forensic examination of Arik in 2015 and 2016. The report wrote off Arik as an insolvent company, which was the underlying fact. When we intervened, the experts advised that we should liquidate it, sell everything and move away. Even if we did that, we wouldn't have recovered a fraction of the debt he's holding.
Mr. Nwanzo also says the corporation has two more companies affiliated to Mr. Arumemi Ikide, which are indebted to AMCON.
We are not just chasing him for just Arik. There are two other of his companies that are in our hold. And then these companies' debts were transferred to AMCON by various banks due to their non-performance, with a total indebtedness of 455 billion, 171, 743 and 722.8 billion as at December 31st, 2024. On Arik alone, as at 35 December 2024, Arik was owing AMCON 277.637 billion. His Robson Engineering was on 163.502 billion. Now the German firms is owing 14 billion and 31.
AMCON explains that it will continue to explore all possible legal solutions in its quest to recover the monies owed by Arik Air Limited.
The point remains that these are debtors.
The government of Enugu State and the landmark Africa Group have signed a deal to revamp and further develop the potentials of Nike Lake Resort, Enugu. The deal, which is a joint venture, allows the state government to give Nike Lake Resort as an asset while Landmark is expected to provide management and operations of the resort to return it to its former glory by investing up to 10 billion naira in the first phase of the partnership. Speaking during a brief deal signing ceremony at the Government House, Enugu, Governor Peter Mba described the deal as a public-private partnership arrangement that would bring the state closer to his administration's ambition of growing the state's economy to $30 billion in the next 6 years. Earlier, the Landmark Group pledged not to only invest the initial 10 billion naira, but will bring in up to 2 million visitors into Enugu annually, as well as create jobs and ramp up the state's internally generated revenue.
For us, making it is essentially getting it revamped and also optimized. It's for us a welcome development. We're looking forward to this partnership. We hope that this type of investment you've mentioned is going to happen immediately, and then I think that we've all. It's been a very long process. I understand that it took quite some time, but I'm happy that we've dotted all the I's and we've crossed the T's.
We make sure that this is not a small win. It's going to be a very, very big win. We're going to increase the number of jobs here. We're going to make a big dent on IGR. We intend to invest upwards of 10 billion naira within the first term of the first phase of this thing. And we believe from an employment perspective, an SME creation perspective, from a supply chain and a value chains perspective, obviously from taxes and from visitor numbers, not just local visitors or regional visitors, but international visitors and the wider region. I think we'll increase those numbers.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Will Ibong in Lagos for business news.
Thank you, Gloria. Now, a total of 1.42 trillion naira from December 2024 Federation revenue has been distributed to the federal government, state and local government councils. This was announced at the January 2025 FAC meeting held in Abuja. Revenue included statutory funds, VAT, EMTL, and exchange difference income. The federal government received 451.19 billion naira. States got 498.49 billion naira and local governments took 361.75 billion naira. All producing states also received 113.47 billion naira as 13% derivation revenue, while VAT and EMTL collections increased. Statutory revenue saw a significant drop compared to November 2024. Deductions for collection costs and interventions totaled 885.95 billion naira. Now, despite these adjustments, the FAC assured equitable revenue distribution to all tiers of government. The Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, believes that a major hurdle to the implementation of the proposed tax reform bill may have been crossed after the Nigerian Governors Forum shared their preferred value-added tax sharing formula. Dr. Yusuf, who was a guest on Business Morning, however, calls for caution in the area of centralization of revenue collection, which may lead to bureaucracy and corruption.
The bureaucratic bottlenecks when it comes to pulling revenue together and everybody now go through the budgetary process and all of it, it's a very big issue. And that is why this is even sometimes breed corruption. That's why we have this huge allegation against the former Accountant General running into billions of naira. Centralization creates bottlenecks. It creates bureaucracy. And any system that has intense bureaucracy, that has a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks, naturally will breed corruption. I can tell you that. I mean, look at even the public hearings. Even the police yesterday was saying that they want to be taken out of the envelope system. You know, the universities have been taken out of TSA.
After a lot of fights.
Because it created a whole lot of problems. So, if you are going to go that route, we should be ready to deal with the challenges of bureaucracy.
Now, the International Monetary Fund has raised its global growth forecast for 2025 by 0.1%, now projecting a 3.3% growth for both 2025 and 2026. This update reflects stronger than expected growth in the U.S., while global inflation is also expected to drop to 4.2% in 2025. However, the IMF cautions that global growth remains below the historical range of 3.7%. It warns against protectionist policies such as tariffs, which could harm global trade and provoke retaliation, leaving countries worse off. Now we come back to the domestic stock market, which sustained positive sentiments to close the final trading day for the week in the green. John Mekwa tells us more.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. The final trading day of this week has a positive trade building on the success or profits of yesterday. We see that bargain hunting continued today, and today it drove the market to 102,353.68 in green, 0.17%. And market cap, well, we've lost some, but we are 62 trillion naira, 62.851 trillion naira. Look at the sectors. Banking is down today. They're the top trade, but a lot of profit taking happened right there. So we see banking down 0.23%, but others escaped. Consumer goods 0.58% because of international breweries and non-oil flour, oil and gas recovered from yesterday's red. It's up because of Japo Gold and Aradel. Aradel is back. It seems investor sentiment is switching on Aradel, so it's up 1.05%. Top trades are mostly profit taking happening here. Access Coal and other financial institutions right there, Fidelity as well as UBA had a lot of profit taking, but they led by volume. So I guess it's going to be a very bullish weekend.
And that's a wrap on business. It's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Will. Israeli government is meeting to vote on the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the first set of hostages are expected to gain their freedom as early as Sunday if the deal is approved. It's Sam Puzi with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US Supreme Court has upheld a law that bans TikTok nationwide unless its China-based parent company ByteDance sells the platform by this Sunday. TikTok had challenged the law, arguing it would violate free speech for the app's more than 170 million users it says it has in the US. But the argument was rejected by the nation's highest court, meaning TikTok must now find an approved buyer for the US version of the app or face being removed from app stores and web hosting services. However, the outgoing Biden administration and incoming President Donald Trump have been trying to work out a reprieve for the platform, which US authorities have warned poses a national security risk.
We did go on TikTok, and we had a great response with billions of views, billions and billions of views. They brought me a chart, and it was a record, and it was so beautiful to see. And as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while, you know.
Users will still be able to use TikTok. They won't be able to get updates on the App Store. New users will not be able to upload it. And eventually the data will start to become, more and more stale with no updates. And that's something that really needs to play out, effective what happens on January 19th.
Levels of the most significant planet-warming gas in our atmosphere rose more quickly than ever before, last year, scientists say, leaving a key global climate target hanging by a thread. Concentrations of carbon dioxide are now more than 50% higher than before humans started burning large amounts of fossil fuels. Last year, fossil fuel emissions were at record highs, with the natural world struggling to absorb as much CO2 due to factors including wildfires and drought, so more accumulated in the atmosphere. The rapid increase in CO2 is incompatible with the international pledge to try to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. US President Joe Biden is commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of non-violent drug offenses 3 days before he leaves office. Mr. Biden said the offenders were serving disproportionately long sentences compared to the sentences they would receive today under current law, policy and practice. In an announcement on Friday, Mr. Biden said he had now issued more individual pardons and commutations than any other president in US history. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has visited the Auschwitz Nazi death camp in Poland ahead of the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the site, which is seen as a symbol of the horrors of the Holocaust. Mr. Starmer was accompanied by his wife Victoria, who is Jewish, at the concentration camp where more than 1.1 million people, most of them Jews, were killed by the Nazis during World War II. Britain's King Charles is due to attend a commemoration service at the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum and Memorial on January the 27th. China Media Group have held their third rehearsal for the 2025 Spring Festival Gala, with the 4 sub-venues involved for the first time. Chongqing Municipality, Wuhan of Hebei Province, Lhasa of Zhejiang Autonomous Region, and Wuxi of Jiangsu Province have all been selected to stage part of the world's most watched TV program. Along with the main venue in Beijing, these locations will stage singing, dancing, magic, martial arts, and creative fusion performances. The Spring Festival falls on the 29th of January this year. It marks the start of the traditional Chinese Lunar New Year and is China's grandest traditional festival. And after lying hidden beneath meters of volcanic rock and ash for 2,000 years, a once-in-a-century find has been unearthed in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii in Italy. Archaeologists have discovered a sumptuous private bathhouse, potentially the largest ever found there, complete with hot, warm and cold rooms, exquisite artwork, and a huge plunge pool. The spa-like complex sits at the heart of a grand residence uncovered over the last 2 years during a major excavation. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Well, it's interesting times for Manchester City, despite their having a bleep at the English Premier League for this season. Erling Haaland is in the news. Chris, what do you want to tell us about that concerning his transfer on Sports News?
Thank you, Ayo. Actually, Erling Haaland has signed a blockbuster new deal at Manchester City to keep the prolific forward at the Etihad until 2034. The Premier League champions announced earlier today. The 24-year-old striker's existing contract was due to expire in June 2027, but he has now committed his future to the club for the next decade.
I'm proud, and it's difficult to put words on because it is a big moment and everything, and who I am is I am happy, and that's the right words to use. So I'm super proud and happy, and I look forward to staying there for a long time. And now I can fully focus on getting better, because I'm going to stay here for such a long time. So full focus on performing, on getting better, and to give all the fans what they want. Yeah, I'm really confident that we can turn things around, and to get this feeling of hunger inside every one of us, to don't look at things easy and everything, to take things don't take things for granted.
What a celebration. That sports is back to you, Ayo.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Tensions flared at the National Assembly today as lawmakers disrupted the 2025 budget defense session for the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has warned the military against the killing of innocent citizens in the country. Criminals have vandalized the 132 kV transmission line, disrupting power supply to Maitama, Wusi, Jabi, Live Camp, Asokoro, Utako, and Mabushi areas. And TikTok faces ban in the United States by Sunday after the Supreme Court rejected its appeal. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde, Balogun from Number One here. Have a good night and have a great weekend as well.